Paris 2024 Olympics. Why are the French both proud and complaining about it? No, it's not only because they're French. We are on Expat in France, so we will mainly talk about the impacts on people residing in France, visitors coming to Paris for this special event, but also money and some scandals you may not have heard of, and more importantly, we will also wonder who the Games really benefits the most. Every 4 years, the eyes of the world turn towards a single event, the global celebration of excellence and pushing oneself beyond limits, without borders, without barriers, for a moment of intense gathering around sports, namely the Olympic Games. It's not without reason that I decided to talk about the Olympics today, as the 2024 edition starts in less than 2 months and is happening here in my country, and it keeps making headlines. I won't go over ticket prices, unfavorable geopolitical context, or the choice of the First Lady to host the opening ceremony. But first, if you're looking for a solution to move to France sponsor-free and stress-free, then I must tell you about the Dream to Reality program. With the Dream to Reality course, you will live the French lifestyle and move to France without feeling overwhelmed by the French bureaucracy. You will know where to start and how to prepare a successful sponsor-free visa request. The Dream to Reality course is a comprehensive online course to help you prepare your sponsor-free visa request to move to France the right way. No more scrolling the web, feeling scattered with conflicting, unsourced information, and gain clarity and control to build your new life in France. Click on the link below for more information. Less than 2 months before the Paris 2024 Olympics start, exactly 100 years on, France is hosting again the Summer Olympics, and for the 3rd time. France hosted them in 1900, in 1924, and will host them this summer 2024. And you know why Paris was selected? There was no competition. Rome, Hamburg, and Boston all withdrew, either due to referendum where the population said no, or due to protest, and that was not the French in the street protesting for once. Can you really be a winner when there is no opponent? So here we are, both proud and complaining about the Games. In this video, we uncover what the French are complaining about exactly and what are they proud of for the Paris 2024 Games. And since I like to finish on a positive note, we will start by diving right into the dirty reality of Paris 2024 Games. Are you ready? You'll be surprised. But before that, in case you missed the memo, here are the basics. The Paris 2024 Olympic Games will take place from July 26 to August 11, 2024. The Paralympic Games will take place just after, from August 28 to September the 8th. This means 329 events and over 10,500 athletes from 206 delegations. In the past few months, or even a bit more, many scandals already hit the French media about the Paris 2024 Olympics. From money allocation to housing scandals and environmental issues that will most certainly put some athlete health at risk, I won't be able to mention all the scandals since it's been too many. However, have you heard that some competition will take place in the Seine River? How romantic, right? Not really. It is described by many as total madness, while others like to see this as ambition. Yes, really ambitious since there is no plan B. Well, you should know that after 100 years of swimming ban in the Seine River for being unsafe due to pollution, we will be able to swim in the Seine River again. Well, the athletes will, and maybe the Parisians, as they used to do in the good old days. Pollution cleaning boats are sweeping the bottoms for 60 kilometers. They retrieve all kinds of waste, over 360 tons of waste this year. They get everything from shopping carts, electric scooters, city rental bikes, safes, motorcycle, you name it. However, they already announced that they will not manage to fully clean the river due to the enormous quantity present. In reality, the biggest problem with the Seine water is the wastewater and unwashed pesticides from the agricultural sector that flows into it. Basically, the wastewater from houses and rain runoff. In normal times, they are mixed and sent to treatment plants. But when it rains a lot, this system becomes saturated and untreated wastewater flows into the Seine River through storm overflows. In 2022, over 2 million cubic meters of untreated wastewater were discharged into the Seine River. Untreated water, what do you think it is? Some solution has been implemented and the overall budget for the Seine sanitation is 1.4 billion euros. They've created reservoirs that can hold excess water, the equivalent of 20 Olympic swimming pools. So when it rains, they have storage capacity which prevents the overflow into the Seine River. The problem is that authorities have already warned that this system won't be enough in case of heavy rains, which we had in the past few weeks. So we'll pray there is no storm, right? And as they say, it's not madness, it's ambition. And remember, there is no plan B, so either the athletes swim in the Seine River or the triathlon and open water competition are cancelled, which is not part of the plan. But let's not worry. The mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, and maybe our president are going to swim in the Seine River on June 23rd before the Olympics. I'm sure this will sanitize the river instantly. Everyone is holding their breath. It's still unclear if the president plans to take preventive measures such as probiotics or medication in case of run-in with bacteria such as Escherichia coli or Enterococcus, which can cause severe gastrointestinal illness or even worse. Some sports teams participating in the triathlon and open water competition between Alexander I Bridge and Les Invalides near the Eiffel Towers have planned precautions, advising swimmers not to touch anything after exiting the waters, especially not their eyes or mouth, before full disinfection. How romantic! Enough about dirty waters. Now let's talk about money. Behind the festivities, performances, and medals lies a colossal machine handling billions of dollars. And for a few decades now, it's been escalating. Each edition aims to be more beautiful and grander than the previous ones. Today, the Olympic business has taken on titanic proportions and requires staggering budgets, from the construction of colossal infrastructure to billions of dollars in broadcasting rights, marketing, and sponsorship. How much does the Olympics cost? Who pays? And how much do they bring in? Hosting the world's largest sporting event requires significant resources and the ability to mobilize them quickly. In exchange for all these efforts, the host cities and countries hope for major commercial, tourism, fiscal, or image-related benefits, and even more if national athletes win medals. Then it's a total success. This is also the argument used to silence critics who claims that the Olympic machine is just an expensive mirage, the most costly promotional tools in history. According to them, the financial windfall of sport enthusiasm always benefits the same people and certainly not the host country, let alone the local population or athletes. And remember, Paris had no opponent to host these games. Officially, an Olympic session has 4 main sources of funding: TV and broadcasting rights, which represents the largest revenue, about 50% on average, then sponsorship for about 25%, and the rest comes from ticket sales and marketing and licensed product sales like plush toys, t-shirts, and souvenirs sold in Olympic Village shops. All this money is supposed to finance the organization of the Games, the construction of infrastructure, accommodation, transportation, security, and of course the festivities. The International Olympic Committee, IOC, the official body of the Olympics, proudly claim that 96 to 99% of budgets are funded by private sources. We will see later with the Paris example that this is far from the truth. The IOC is a non-profit organization founded in 1894 to promote sports values everywhere in the world. But since Pierre de Coubertin, the founder of the Olympics, things have changed a lot, and commercial interests have largely surpassed the scope of universal celebration of sports and performance. Attracted by constantly growing audiences, broadcasters agreed to pay more and more, and sponsors multiplied. Little by little, the game transformed into an economic and commercial machine with staggering performances. The last Summer Olympics in Tokyo was watched by nearly 3.5 billion people cumulatively, and 1 billion viewers are expected for the next opening ceremony only in Paris. Advertisers and other partners are now willing to spend billions of dollars to enjoy the exceptional visibility offered by the Olympics, and that's precisely why they have turned into an industry. You have to go back to 1956 and the Melbourne Summer Olympic to find a budget without broadcasting rights. Since then, the escalation has continued from $560 million for the Los Angeles Olympics in 1984, and more recently at the Rio 2016 Games, the total broadcasting rights exceeded $5.3 billion. So you can see the race to gigantism was established as an Olympic discipline in its own right. When France submitted its bid in 2015, the budget for organizing the Games was estimated at 3.3 billion and 3.4 billion for infrastructure, making it particularly economical session compared to Rio or Tokyo, which exceeded $20 billion. In practice, the resources are centralized by our National Olympic Committee, Paris 2024, which then allocates them to various expenses and projects in agreement with the IOC. Construction and maintenance of infrastructure, modernization or securing public spaces and transport, salaries of people present during the Games, reward for athletes and their accommodations with Michelin star chefs and local organic products at every meal. We are in France after all. Remember that we've seen that these resources come from ticket sales, sponsor contribution, and finally the IOC's allocation, which usually represents the largest portion. But as often, the budget has already overrun, and we're talking about a significant overrun. According to reassessment by the Court of Auditors in 2022, expenses reached 8.9 billion divided between 4.4 billion for the organization and 4.5 billion for the infrastructure construction. Remember, it was originally estimated at 3.3 billion and 4.4 billion, but what's 2 billion difference, right? It's like nobody cares, except the taxpayers maybe. And it's not over yet. Unforeseen events happens all the time and no one is surprised anymore. We will have to wait until the end of the Games to get the complete picture, but with few exceptions, hosting the Olympics costs a lot and deepens deficits. The total bill has not yet been established, but here are some extracts from the invoice. Salaries 587 million, not counting bonuses for police, which is roughly an additional 500 million. Those for healthcare workers and transport drivers are not yet evaluated. Artists for the opening ceremony, 20 million. The opening ceremony itself, 220 million, excluding security, estimated at 295 million for 17 days of event. Then 50,000 volunteers to welcome and animate the venues every day, 8 hours a day, €0, yes, that's free. Then cleaning and preparing the Seine rivers, 1.4 billion. Then burying high voltage line, 52 million. Construction of the fan zone club, 22 million. 337 million for marketing, 480 million for telecommunication deployment, 500 million for unforeseen events, I'm sure this will be multiplied, and also 300,000 euros of condoms, yes, And I'm not counting what is not counted. In total, we reached 4.4 billion. We are far from the most loaded games in 2015. In the end, those who cost the least are the athletes, the heroes of the Olympics, who for the most part are far from being wealthy in their daily lives, but are also there to make a name for themselves. A gold medal, actually made of silver plated with gold, is worth around 800 euros. A silver medal is worth 350 euros. And a bronze medal, mostly made of copper, is worth about 15 euros. Financially, it won't change their lives. 111 million euros is enough to reward the real stars of the Olympic machine, or 4% of the initial organization budget. But this does not account for a major player in this adventure, called Solideo, the public agency created to manage the real estate aspects of the games. Initially endowed with a budget of 3.2 billion, it has now transformed into 4.5 billion, with only 68% of these funds being private. In the end, 1.2 billion comes from the taxpayers' pocket. So if you are an expat living in France, you are most certainly contributing to this as well. So the games are partly public, no need to pull out your calculator to see the sums of money they move. The only winners are the companies that will reap the fruits of the extravagant production, and a few people who are not always disinterested in the success of the event. Behind the games, there are colossal commercial stakes and billions of dollars changing hands. Yet behind this glittering show lies a reality that is far from perfect. There are still millions of people who cannot afford to attend events, even with reduced prices, and an overexploited population that benefits little from the games. Now let's see into more details the impact on the locals. After dirty waters and money amounting to so many zeros that it doesn't make any sense anymore, now let's talk about real-life impacts for Paris, Parisians, and its visitors during the Games. Are the Paris 2024 Olympics going to be a disaster? Let's first touch on the security and organizational aspects of the Games. It is not a secret that we are currently living in unstable times, and it is conceivable that states that are now hostile to France. Also, I'm not breaking news by saying that France is on the radar for terrorist attacks. It's been for many years, and we have suffered many traumas already. This is a threat that has weighed on France for several decades already, and will continue to do so when we have events like the Olympic Games with an international dimension, which could give a significant showcase for the propaganda of terrorist groups. Some might think that the threat is mainly to Paris, but not necessarily, because in reality there are going to be a huge number of police officers and militaries who are normally posted to other cities who will be sent to Paris during the Olympics. We are so short of men that we have asked for reinforcement from other European countries such as Poland. This means that since there are going to be a massive influx of police officers to the capital, there are other cities that are going to be neglected from the point of view of security, such as Lyon, Marseille, Montpellier, Nice and Bordeaux, for example, where sport competition will also take place, such as football or sailing. What's more, the Paris Olympic Committee had the marvelous idea of organizing the opening ceremony on the Seine River, as I said before. And apart from the major health issue, there are several other major problems here. We are in an open space stretching for kilometers with thousands and thousands of people, which is way more difficult to secure than a closed stadium ceremony. Also, in Paris, there are a good number of balconies dating from the last century, which are extremely dilapidated. And according to some estimates, most Parisian balconies cannot support the weight of 6 middleweight adults. So it is quite easy to imagine overcharged last century balconies of people partying while watching the ceremony or sports events. So there is a major safety risk and the potential for casualties that most people don't anticipate. The other problem is that, as every Parisian knows, it's already very difficult to get around Paris by car. So we can imagine that it will be easier with public transport, but not necessarily, since the RATP, the Paris Public Transport Company, will not be ready, as it was announced by the Mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo. Also, some unions may call for a public transport strike, and no one would be surprised in France. Why? Because it's an enormous pressure tool, so most of the traditional unions could go on strike. I mean, when you live on a relatively low salary and that this money machine event depends on your workforce to go smoothly, and some companies make billions of dollars out of this popular event, this can generate some frustration, to say the least. Other bodies like the SNCF, the National Rail Company, and also the farmers could go on strike during the Olympic period, because it has to be said quite clearly that the French farmers have been let down by the government, and there is the possibility of blockage as well. In other words, plan a few hours to go anywhere around Paris. Forget your fancy shoes and breathe, it will all be fine. And there are still a few scandals on the list, like students' eviction during exam periods to host the athletes in small students' rooms. But no one is complaining here. I mean, they are receiving €100 in total per student to find alternative housing in one of the most expensive cities at the most expensive time of its history. And there are more scandals, but I think it's enough for now. Let's try to see the bright side now. What makes the Paris Olympics different? First, the city of Paris, of course. This open-air museum transforms itself to host the most competitive sports events and ceremonies that will take place in exceptional sites. Despite all these well-funded critics, I'm sure the opening ceremony will be splendid in the heart of Paris along the Seine River. Unlike many other events, spectators can view the ceremonies from various spots along the riverbank for free. Beware of the 19th century balcony though, and make sure that you get there early to get a spot. Also, the beach volleyball players are really the lucky ones here. After Bondi Beach at Sydney 2000 and Copacabana at Rio 2016, they will be stopping off at another exceptional venue this summer. The Eiffel Tower Stadium will be hosting the men's and women's tournaments. Also, the Champ de Mars Arena is at the other end of the famous garden of the same name and will offer judokas and wrestlers an unobstructed view of the 330-meter-high monument, namely the Eiffel Tower. Then the Trocadero on the other bank of the Seine River will host the start of the road cycling races and the Parc des Champions. The marathon will also pass within meters of the Eiffel Towers. Then the oldest monument in Paris is located at Concorde, the obelisk. It was built in Egypt during the reign of Ramses II more than 3,000 years ago. It is at the foot of this Egyptian masterpiece that the most recent sport on the Olympic program will take place. In the heart of Paris, a temporary urban park will bring together athletes and spectators in 3x5 basketball, breaking, BMX style, and skateboarding. Also, the former residence of King Louis XIV will become an Olympic venue. It will be setting a modern equestrian and pentathlon event with temporary facilities installed in the renowned garden. Here I'm referring to Versailles, of course. Le Château de Versailles will also be admired by marathon runners. The race will run from the center of Paris to Versailles before returning to the capital in honor of the Women's March, which took place on October 5th and 6th, 1789, and remains an important moment in the French Revolution. Also, not all Paris 2024 incredible Olympic venues are concentrated in the French capital. The Marina of Marseille is proof of that. The sailing events will be held in France's second most populous city. In particular, they will take advantage of a marina located between the two of the main city's attractions, the Basilique Notre-Dame de la Garde and the Prado Beach. If Marseille's old port is renowned in France, the future Olympic sailing venue could have a similar destiny. This marina could become a major hub of activity in a city that is passionate about football but irresistibly turned towards the sea. The arrival of the Olympic flame on May the 8th is another highlight of the 2024 Olympic Games. It arrived in France via Marseille after a journey across the Mediterranean from Greece. The Paris 2024 Olympic Games will also take place in the southern hemisphere, more than 10,000 kilometers from mainland France. Tijuana, a small village on the French Polynesian island of Tahiti, will host the surfing events. Already known around the world as a stopover in the World Surfing League, this wave is one of a kind. With a typical height of 2 to 3 meters and shallow coral reef, it's a very demanding site where surfing isn't as relaxing an experience as its postcard landscape might suggest. Surfing is actually one of the 4 additional sports proposed by Paris 2024 Olympics, with breaking, climbing and skateboarding. The last thing that makes me particularly proud is that the Paris 2024 Games will be the first ever fully gender-balanced games in the history of Olympism, with an equal number of male and female athletes. Go ladies, show us your grandeur! Now, as for my conclusion, I had a hard time writing it, because even if I'm not discovering the nature of the world today, from an improbable blow of a victory against no one, to the broken promises to the people and the athletes, I was really revolted by the Olympics, but it's the dream of a lifetime for athletes. And yet, in Rio in 2016, half of French athletes earned less than 500 euro a month, so they must have several jobs because often the sports federation don't pay them, and this situation hasn't changed much since then, and I'm sure a large majority of athletes are poorly paid all around the world. However, it is always the same emotion, and that's the magic of the games too. I know this video won't change much, but I dedicate it to the French athletes and from all around the world. If your determination and commitment could be shared by more people, that would do us good. That's it for this video. We'll be back for another video soon, but in the meantime, you can check out this video here that you might like. Thank you for watching until the end. Merci et à bientôt!